So the reason I'm making this video today is going to be kind of a preventative maintenance type of thing that I posted on Reddit and also a few other places, and a lot of people got interested in it. But basically there's a major issue with Model 3 and Model Y, specifically if you live in a climate like me. I live in Illinois and also Michigan that doesn't have the best roads. Essentially the way that Tesla designs the undercarriage of the car, I'll show you guys right here, is basically from this point here all the way to the back is the high voltage battery. The high voltage battery is covered all the way back with steel. It's encased all the way around, so it's pretty tough. However, where the motors are located in the front and the rear, this one being a dual motor, it has two motors. The front and the rear motors are covered by a plastic shielding right here. The problem with the plastic shielding is that at this point right here is where the coolant for the battery goes in. And if you drive over something pretty big, which can happen, it can break through this plastic and break the coolant line. The coolant line, and I'll show you guys this in a second, is a spigot that comes out of the battery that is encased in the battery. So the only way that you can actually replace that spigot is to take down the entire battery, open the battery up, and replace that spigot. There is another way, which is kind of like a jerry rig type of way where you can kind of finesse it and fix it up, but it's not an actual fix that is permanent, or it's semi-permanent, but it's not the perfect fit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this shielding down and I'm gonna show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so we got a bunch of these 10mm bolts that we're gonna remove. There's one, there's two. Thank you, Moon. There's three. There we go. And I dropped that one. There's four. Okay, and then you got some back here. Okay, that's the last of the 10mm bolts, I believe. And then we have two 16mm bolts. I believe, actually there's three. So there's one right here, one right here, and then one right here. So we'll remove all three of these bolts. So we'll switch out this head for a 16mm. Okay, so we just took off the part right here. This is the part that Tesla ships. On older Model 3s, this used to be a really thin kind of piece of like composite fiber. It was very cheaply made, not really that strong. They've now reinforced it, so this is a pretty strong piece of plastic. So if you were to break through this, it would be, not easy. But one of my actually really good friends, my first cousin actually, ended up breaking through the plastic in the car on a 2022 Model Y. So this is the exact reason I'm doing it. But if you want to take a look over here, you can see under that we've got the front motor right here. And just immediately behind it, we've got the battery, but more specifically, we have this coolant line that runs over here. It's this part right here. The coolant line has these fittings that go straight into the battery. Now, if you're so unlucky as to drive over something huge that breaks through that plastic barrier right there, and then just perfectly hits one of these coolant lines, which may sound like a uncommon thing, but it's actually very possible. Like I said, it happened to my cousin. These coolant line connectors are within this battery. And what Tesla will do is, instead of actually taking the battery down, opening the battery up, and replacing this connector, they will just go ahead and replace the entire battery, which turns from maybe a few $100 repair to a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 repair. I've seen it as high as $18,000 to replace this entire battery. So the solution to that problem, to prevent having to go through that hassle of being stranded when this coolant does end up getting hit eventually, if it does, you can actually get something like this right here. This is the same exact part as we saw over here. It's honestly pretty much identical. The only difference is this is going to be aluminum, and it's also got some sound insulation on the other side. So the benefit is, again, if you drive over something, it's highly unlikely that anything will get through this. So you're just increasing the strength of the vehicle from there. And if you want to purchase this specific one, the front and the rear, which I'll show you in a little bit, I'll have a link in the description for where you can purchase that. Okay, so a lot of these are manufactured in China, so the quality control with these is not the best as I found. But just a couple tips I'd like to show you. When I got this one in, it wasn't fully seating up, and that was because right over here, this piece was bent inward, and that's just not the shape of how it's supposed to be. So what I did was I just took. You could take pliers, honestly, because it's aluminum. It's very easily pliable. Or I took vice grips and I basically just took it where I wanted to bend it, and I bent it in the right direction. It left no damage. It looks perfectly fine. And then the other thing that I had to do was these two 16 millimeter bolts. These are the only two 16 millimeter bolts. The rest are 10. These two have threads that come out from the car. For some reason, the hole on this side was not perfectly lined up. We tried everything. So essentially what I did was I took a drill bit and I just kind of put some pressure on the side and I widened the hole a little bit and it fit perfectly. So now all of these are on here. They're nice and tight and it's a lot stronger. So this will definitely help protect the coolant lines. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to move to the back here. Same thing, 10 millimeter bolts in the back. I'll show you guys right here. So this is the cover. It's kind of an odd shape. It is also plastic. So we'll kind of start with these ones. Okay, so we just removed the rear one. It's just a bunch of 10 millimeter bolts. A lot of them were pretty tight on there. You can see the rear motor because this is a dual motor performance. So that's that. If you come around this way, you'll see the hoses again for the coolant for the battery. And they run all over here, and there's an angle right there. So getting a skid plate over here is also a really good idea because again, this is plastic. So we'll show you guys the metal one in a second. Okay, so as you guys can see, this is the plastic one right on the floor here. And then this is gonna be the metal one. The front part is Model Y specific. So one thing I wanna mention is just be careful buying some of the ones that say for Model 3 and Y for the front and the rear. The part for the front on the Model Y and 3 is different. But a lot of sellers will sell them as the same part, but they're different. So I actually purchased one of those and I kind of got screwed. And I ended up getting a Model 3 part for the front. And I had to go through a bunch of stuff to find that out. So you guys don't have to go through all that because you can select on the link in the description, either Y or 3, and then I'll send you the correct one. Again, this one right here, we installed it. This is going to be specifically for the Y. The one for the 3 has these kind of like flanges that go out. The Y doesn't have the space for that, just the way it was designed. And you wouldn't be able to install the one for the Model 3. The back, however, is exactly the same on both models. So this is the black one. The only difference is you're gonna have some leftover holes on the Model Y when you install it, just because the Model 3 has a couple more points where it needs to be put in. Okay, so we got the back one all installed, as you guys can see. Just a couple things to note. You kind of have to shimmy it on there. You kind of have to like flex a little bit of the metal. You have to move the fender liner out of the way on both sides. It might not fit perfectly right, but then you kind of have to just move it a little bit. I had to bend this piece of metal a little bit as well. This is, again, just manufacturing defects from China. That's all that's really on the market right now, are these two. These are the best ones on the market, but they're very good, don't get me wrong. And then the only final thing I'd like to mention is that these two screws on this side and these two screws on this side are going to remain open, as well as the clip that used to go right here. You're not going to be reinstalling that clip. It's not needed at all because, again, these two screws are for Model 3. So if you have a Model 3, these will be populated, but if you have a Model Y like we have here, they're not needed, but the shape is the same, so they just make one part for the rear. Again, be careful in ordering the ones that say Model 3 and Y because they're not for 3 and Y for the front and the rear. The front, again, as I'll show you again, is different. On the 3, it's got these like flares that come out. On the Y, it's like this piece right here. So when you select the right one, I will send you the correct one that you're going to need. In the next video, I'll actually show you guys how to install these guards right here. So these guards go and they protect the final coolant elbow, and they go kind of like right here. And we're in the process of installing these right now, but there's one more elbow right here. You got a bunch over here, but you got one on each side over here, one here and one here. So if you drive over something and it goes under your tire and your tire flings it here, that's exactly how my cousin actually damaged his. It went right through this plastic and damaged it, and they had to replace the entire battery pack.